Hey, Precalc. So we're still looking at the unit circle exploration today. Hopefully you got your printed out unit circle from yesterday and your data table still. Um, should be done with the measuring stick for today, but I do want to look at a couple of clarifying points just about some of the measurements that I'm seeing people enter. If you're having trouble getting the measurements entered correctly yesterday, this is one possible reason. I just want to check our the way we're entering coordinates on a graph. So here's a graphic, an x-axis and a y-axis, 6 points labeled with fun shapes going around the graph, and we're just going to identify whether for each of those points would the x-coordinate and the y-coordinate be a positive value, a negative value, or zero. I'm not looking for any numbers, just would it be positive or negative or zero. So for the star, I got to go right on the x, that's going to be positive, and up on the y, so that is going to be positive also. For the flower, it's right on the y-axis, so my x value is going to be 0 because I did not go left or right. And then to go up, the y is going to be positive. For the bullseye, left on the x, that's negative, and up on the y is going to be positive. For the smiley face, sitting right on the x-axis, I had to go left to get there on the x-axis, so that's going to be a negative x. The y-coordinate is going to be 0 because I didn't go up or down. That husky W, negative to go left, negative to go down, and my Iron Man symbol over here. Positive on the X is going to be plus, and down, I mean negative on the Y. Hey, two more quick important review questions here. Let's a couple of division problems. Let's smash the numbers on the number row of my keyboard. Came up with 987, so that's our number. We're going to divide that by 0, and then we'll do number 8 after. So 987 divided by 0 is try this on your calculator. Your calculator will say something like error. We interpret that to mean that it is undefined. Your calculator can't use words that big sometimes. And a lot of times, if you're entering this on a piece of paper to write it down, we might say that that is infinity because it's way shorter than undefined. So we use that sometimes. All of those would be fine on paper. However, if you're entering your answers into WAMAP, you will need to say to the computer, whoops, does not exist. Means essentially the same thing as undefined, except this is what WAMAP accepts. And so you don't actually type out that whole long phrase because that's way too long. So you just put D and E. You cannot divide by 0. You can't take a thing and divide it into non-existent parts. That's not possible. Number 8, on the other hand, you can take nothing and divide it into as many parts as you want. All of the parts are still going to have nothing, but this is in the realm of possibility. So this equals 0. All right. So we need to today get to a couple of things. One, I just want to point out you're going to be doing 3 calculations, and in this last column on the printed data table, the vertical measurement divided by the horizontal measurement, you are going to get some values that do not exist. So you'll need to type DNE, right? So the assignment is if you did not finish part 1 yesterday or could not get the measurements entered correctly, check to make sure you got your correct sign, positive signs, negative signs, based on which quadrant in the graph you are in. Also 0 values. So for today, we're going to move forward, calculating the 3 columns of ratios. There's the horizontal measurement divided by the radius. There's the vertical measurement divided by the radius, and your vertical divided by your horizontal measurement. In all of those situations, you're going to use at least 2 decimal places. Okay, some of you may be saying, well, how am I going to do that? Right, so I have a couple of examples I measured yesterday. I've got the vector going to 60 degrees. I measured the x component and the y component yesterday, and also at 225. So I have those 2 angles entered in my example data table. My 2.3 is the x, 3.9 was the horizontal, sorry, x is the horizontal, so 2.3 is horizontal. 3.9 is my vertical or y measurement. In order to calculate any of these 3 ratios, I will need to know what is the radius. Okay, so I'm going to back up here to my circle. I got my ruler set up so that I can measure the radius. You might already have the radius. It's totally possible you've already measured the radius. You might not have written it down as like radius equals, but you probably already measured the radius. At any rate, if you want to double check it, go for it. So I'm going to get my ruler set up to go from the center of the circle out here to the edge, and looks like 4.6 of these units. So I am going to use that value as my radius. Okay, so for each of these measurements, I'm going to divide by the radius. It'll be that same number every single time. So at 60 degrees, my horizontal was 2.3. Divide that by 4.6, and I got 0.50. That's going to come into the horizontal divided by radius column. 3.9 was my vertical measurement. I'm going to divide that by 4.6. That was the radius. Divide by 4.6 every single time. I got 0.85. That calculation is going to come into the vertical over radius column. Down here at 225, I'm going to take my negative 3.2. That is the blue horizontal measurement. Divide by 4.6. I got negative 0.70, rounding to 2 decimal places. That's going to come right here. And same value here for the, you can't see the label anymore, for the vertical divided by radius. Okay, and then the last thing that we'll need is to calculate the vertical divided by the horizontal measurement. So I'm going to take, for the 60 degrees, I'm going to take my vertical 3.9 divided by my horizontal, which was 2.3. Divide those, round it off to 2 decimal places. I got 1.70. That's just going to go into this vertical divided by horizontal column. And my final example here, the 225 degrees, so take my vertical, this green, negative 3.2, divided by my horizontal, which was also a negative 3.2. I divide that and got 1.00. You're still going to enter that to 2 decimal places, and it's going to go right here in the vertical divided by horizontal. Okay, so you're going to use your own measurements. Don't use mine. That's not going to work. And make sure that you have your radius measured accurately and entered into the WAMAP accurately before you move on to do anything else.